Thank you, everyone. And it's my pleasure to introduce Tracy Edwards.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much.
Now you have us both going. Oh, congratulations. The film is phenomenal. This is the second time I've watched it, and tears go each time.
Every time.
So, forgive me. Again, it just, you're inspiring for so many reasons, and just such an honor. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
So this story took place 30 years ago, but it feels completely relevant to today. From female athletes who are needing to prove themselves despite having complete competence and their skill, and then the press who's not able to see their ability and doubting their motives. Do you agree with that, and why do you think that's still the case?
Sadly, I do agree with it. We sold Maiden at the end of the race, and you may have seen a little bit up on the screen about that. And then in 2014, we rescued her from certain sinking in the Seychelles. We brought her back to the UK. We've restored her. She's now sailing around the world again, and she's raising money for girls' education and raising awareness. She'll be on the east coast of the States next summer, so you can see the schedule on our website. So what I'm finding out is, 30 years later, I thought it would be an easier ride this time, because we did it, and other women have done it, and, women's sport is now so amazing. But I'm still having the same conversations now that I was having 30 years ago. I'm not having them for myself, because I'm an old fart and I don't race around the world anymore. But actually, being an old fart puts me in a very good position to be able to fight the fight for the younger women in sport who are still having these battles. And, I look at football, who's doing so well, I think, with women's sport. We've got the American women's team, which is doing so well. And, the amount of money that's going into the sport in sponsorship, but they don't get paid as much as the guys, still. And in every sport in the UK, women do not get paid the same as the guys. We have this argument every year at Wimbledon, the same argument every year. Why don't the women get paid as much as the men? And the guys are, because they don't serve as fast. As many people go and watch the women as go and watch the men. I think what I find sad is that on the surface things look good. Women's rugby in the UK is amazing, and they really are putting massive amounts of money behind the women's teams, or because England women's team keep winning and the men keep losing. So, and in cricket we win, and But I think what's happening is there's an insidiousness now to sexism and misogyny in sport, in media, in business, in pretty much every walk of life. And so there's sort of two tiers of things happening here. So there's intelligent men understand that equality is important for all of us. And it's really important at this time because of the planet and the terrible state that we're in. We all have to fight this together. We understand, men and women, intelligent men and women understand that for our children, equality is crucial. There are 130 million girls around the world that don't have an education at the moment. That's got to change, because you only get harmony if you have equality and fairness. I think what I'm finding now, speaking to younger women in the sport of sailing, is in the surface, it's like, yeah, of course we think women should be sailing. And then they go in to get a job on a boat, and they look at a crew of average guys, and they're often better than the guys on the boat, and they're told, it's disruptive having a girl on the boat, and it's frustrating. But I think that the younger generation is even more is even more determined than we were, and that's saying something. And, you know, they're out there, they're doing it, and we're trying to fight the fight for them as well.
And not taking no for an answer, right? I mean, you certainly didn't, and then hopefully, you know, each generation that goes
by. No for an answer,
yeah,
no.
Excellent. The footage in the film is just marvelous. How were you able to capture that much footage while you were sailing around the world? And I'm also curious, what was your original intention for that footage?
Well, it's a really interesting question. The Whitbread organisers, the race organisers, the 85-86 race, which I was on Atlantic Privateer, I think I've got 5 snapshots from my old Instamatic camera, and there is no footage anywhere. Some might say, thank goodness. On the 89-90 race, the race committee said, look, we've got these cameras, and you know, we'd like some volunteer boats to take the cameras. And most of the guys' boats went, oh no, we're far too serious ocean racing sailors to take cameras. And we went, we will. So they gave us a camera, and we looked around the crew, and we went, right, who's going to film? And Jo went, I'll film, because I'm not doing a watch. So we dispatched her to the BBC for 4 days, 4 days training. I know. She came back with this camera, which was bigger than her, which is not hard for Jo, really. But the thing that we did that because some of the other boats took cameras, but none of them practiced, the guys. They went, yeah, we'll just put that down until we go sailing. And we'll leave the instructions, because we don't need the instructions. But we went out and we practiced, and what we realised was when it was all hands on deck, I mean, the first time Jo came up with a camera, I went, you can put that down. You can put that down right now. And she went, well, who's going to film the bad stuff? And we all went, that's a very good point. Right. So we were the only ones, you see the radar mast behind me, we were the only ones that fixed a second camera onto the radar mast, and that's how we got all the shots of the you know, the stuff that is going like that makes you feel a bit... Yeah. That's all the stuff from the thing. And the last person out would hit the panic button, and that would start the filming. None of the other boats had that.
Amazing.
So that was great. And I don't know what we expected from the footage. Whitbread used it. We would hand it over as we got to each stopover, and the news channels would use it, and it would get chopped around and changed and sent around everywhere. When Alex Holmes, the director, came to find it, he was, poor man, he said to me, I'd love to make a film. And I'm thinking, you know, who's going to play you? And we're going to do a script and everything. And I'm like, oh. And he went, why'd you look disappointed? I said, well, because we have footage. How old do you think I am, you know?
It exists.
And as a documentary maker, he went, you have footage? I said, yeah. He went, where is it? I went, I have no idea.
Sure.
He spent 2 years looking for that. 2 years.
Well, that was actually my next question, is how did this come about? How were you approached to make this film? And, you know, were you automatically on board, or did it take a little while to be convinced that you wanted to do this?
I did a talk at his daughter's school, and this is a really, just one of those synchronistic moments. I did not want to go. I'd had a long day. Talk to a primary school just down the road. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go. I want to sit on my sofa and drink a glass of wine. And he was thinking, third child, you know, those nights that you go to and you clap and you cheer and you think, when can I get home? And so we both arrived there not really wanting to be there. And after the talk, he came up to me and said, that's such an amazing story. Someone must have made a film. I said, no, they haven't. He said, I would love to make a film. And then we had that conversation. I didn't say yes to start off with. I just had quite a difficult few years, and my trust in human beings was a pretty much all-time low at that point, I have to say. So I called the girls, and we all talked about it, and I said, you know, what do you think? He says 25 years after something is a good time to make a documentary, because you all tend to tell the truth.
Enough time's gone by, you can reflect.
Yeah, you kind of don't care what people think about you anymore, which is important. So to a woman, they all said yes. They asked me if I trusted Alex, and I said, yes, I do. I think he's a good guy. And I'd just seen Building Jerusalem, which was the documentary he made before ours about rugby. Rugby's my second passion, and it was so superb. I mean, just brilliant. So I said, yeah, I think we'll be okay. And the second question from all of them was, just how honest are we going to be? And we all agreed, let's just do it. Warts and all, let's just do it, because this has got to be a truthful record for girls that come after us. They've got to see that this is not about perfection and looking good and saying the right things and doing the right things and wearing the right things. This is about life's messy sometimes, and it isn't always pretty, and you just have to keep going. And so we insisted that it was as honest as possible. He did such a great job.
We love it. Between all of your footage, the reflections from the women, yourself, and then just the story, it all melds together so beautifully. So impressive. One of my favorite things was the contrast between the original footage from the race and that your fellow crew members were reflecting on their experience, as we just said, and to see how much everyone had changed over the years, but we're still obviously very connected through this experience. And I'm curious, did you all stay in touch over the years, or had you lost touch for a while and then come back together through this film?
No, we all stayed in touch. It was harder before Facebook, obviously, because everyone was all off over the place, and every so often someone would come to Hamble and they go, I'm in Hamble, and everyone would go, right, who can get there? So we've always had little reunions over the years, and Facebook obviously made it easier for us to stay in touch. But we did actually watch this film together for the first time in June last year at BAFTA. Mm-hmm. Alex organised for a whole audience of people, and we were there. Alex was incredibly nervous. He was sort of loitering around the back going, because we can be quite feisty if we don't like something. So brave man. And it was so funny because we were all gathered beforehand and we were all going, because we hadn't seen each other probably for 4 or 5 years, actually, any of us, because we'd all been really busy. And we were going, we all look the same, don't we? Other people must have been going, no, you don't. No. Oh, yeah, we all look the same. And we just haven't changed. And then I went, has anyone seen my glasses? And Mickey went, what? And we went, we may have changed a little bit. But the characters haven't changed. And that's what's so fascinating. The personalities. I watched them all being interviewed. And apart from the fact I've never seen Claire cry before, ever in the whole time I've known her. I mean, God, you'd have a limb hanging off and she'd be going, oh, for God's sake, pull yourself together. Strap it up. Get out there. Here's some painkillers. So it was a phenomenal experience, but I think the one thing we all agree on is we find it really hard to identify with those girls up on that screen. I mean, I'm watching it thinking, I remember myself as being a bit of an idiot, a bit of a twit, and I didn't think I'd ever said anything profound in my life. I thought I'd sort of lurched from one situation to another. I'm watching it thinking, wow, you're quite together. And you're saying some quite sensible things. I don't remember that.
And I don't know, does it ever say in the film how old you were when you started this? Do you actually...
No, so I was 23 when I started the Maiden project.
23.
And 26 when we crossed the start line.
Incredible.
You know what that is? People say, you were so courageous. And I'm going, I don't think it's courage so much as youthful ignorance. When you're young, you have no knowledge of failure. Right. So you just go, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'm up for that. Yeah, off I go.
Well, it's a good thing. So I want to open it up to audience questions.
You're also competitive, and it was such a great film. But do you do any single-handed sailing? And have you ever sailed against any of your crewmates here single-handedly in that sort of competitive way?
Do I look that stupid? I don't get the whole single-handed sailing thing. I hugely admire people that can do it. And of course, women lead single-handed sailing now by, leaps and bounds. Because they don't have men to put up with. No, I'm joking. But it's not my thing. I love the people. I love having a team around me. And when you have a great moment, being able to turn to someone and just look at them and go, yep. Or in a moment of worry or anxiety, especially on a girls' boat, there's always someone to put their arm around you and go, cup of tea? Yes, that'd be great, thanks. So I love that camaraderie, but as I say, I have huge admiration for people that go out there and do it on my own. I don't think I could.
First of all, congratulations on this whole achievement, both the record of it and the reality of it. There were moments of this I found more terrifying than any of the horror movies I've seen, and especially those shots of those waves. My question was, you had made this amazing connection with the King of Jordan. Did I remember that right? And what's the situation with you and Jordan these days?
very interesting question. So I met the King of Jordan when I was a stewardess on a charter yacht, and I'm standing there washing up. He picks up a tea towel, he's standing next to me, and I'm like, you can't do that. He said, I can do anything I like, I'm king. Okay. So we got chatting, and what I found out later on was King Hussein was a collector of people. He loved his fellow human being, and that's why Jordan is such a sort of an island of stability in the Middle East, because he was such a visionary in gender, in race, ethnicity, religion, culture. He believed totally in equality. And when we got chatting, he used to be a ham radio operator, and I love radios, and I love gadgets and navigation, and I'm a bit of a weird girl. So we stayed friends, and he supported me through the 85, 86 race. We always used to chat to him on the radio, 17 South African men and me all speaking to the King of Jordan on the radio. I mean, you couldn't write it. It was so funny. And then doing Maiden, he was always supportive. It behind the scenes, and I did not want to ask him to help fund the project, because I find it hard to ask for help anyway. But when I finally called him and said, I can't see another way to raise the money, and we're not going to get to the start line, he said, I thought you took a long time to ask, and I was waiting. So yeah, of course, Royal Jordanian Airlines will be your sponsor. So we painted the boat that beautiful grey colour, which is the colour of the aeroplanes, and now she's been rescued and restored. The person that paid for the restoration was his daughter, Princess Haya. Oh. Yeah, in his honour.
Very nice.
I was just curious whether you ever got to sail with your team again.
We never sailed together again after that. I know. Actually, that's not strictly true. Different combinations of us did. The next Whitbread had a boatswain in it called Heineken, and that was another all-female crew, and that was skippered by Dawn Riley. And she took Mickey, Jenny, and Marie-Claude. And Marie-Claude and I are now best mates, and we spoke a number of years after the race, and she said, yeah, it's much better that I sailed around the world on Heineken. We would have killed each other. So, yeah, and actually, no, we have actually sailed in smaller combinations, but never the full crew. But, there is talk, someone's saying that all these old boats are being rescued now. It's not just Maiden, there's Steinlager 2, Lion New Zealand, various other old Whitbread boats. Someone said the other day, you know what we should have? We should have an old farts around the world race. And, all of us go round again, probably at a more sedate pace. Maybe with some younger people to do all that stuff, all that stuff. And so you never know.
Could happen.
Could happen.
I want to ask, did you ever feel like after the race, did you still feel really spiteful towards like all of your male competitors, I guess? Because I definitely would have.
I've never felt spiteful towards men who don't get equality. I feel sorry for them. We weren't even that angry with them. It was the situation that we had a problem with. And you can't really define that to one or two people. It was the system. And, the system in sailing is a patriarchy. And that's a system. That's not individuals. And all of the guys on their own were great. You go out drinking with them, or, you stand chatting to them on the dock, or they'd come by to lend you something, or you'd lend them something, and that separately they're all fine. But when they get together in these sort of crews, it becomes a lot more like that. It's a sort of the garden shed at the end of the garden mentality. So no, we were so focused on what we were doing, we kind of blocked that out. It was sort of white noise, really. The biggest problem I had was with journalists who kind of ramped it up. And the two worst journalists weren't interviewed on this because they would never have told the truth about what they said about us. I love the way that Bob and Barry were so truthful, because they would have been so easy for them to go, oh, no, we were never that awful to women sailors, but they were asked to tell the truth, and they did. But I'll give you just a little snapshot of inspiration and hope. So Bob Fisher, he changed his mind as we went round, and he allowed himself to have his mind changed, and I was so impressed with that. And when we got to New Zealand, he wrote, not just a tin full of tarts, a tin full of smart, fast tarts. We were delighted delighted, you know. We didn't notice the word tarts is still in that sentence, you know, but we thought, well, small steps.
Making strides.
But then when Maiden came in, when we rescued her and she was brought in sort of 2 years ago now, Bob Fisher turned up to greet her, and he came down to the dock. He had 2 new hips and knees, and he marched down. He's 80-something. He has tweed Sunday suit, best suit on. And he came down to see Maiden in, and there was a tear in his eye. And then he sat down with me afterwards, and he said, "So, Tracy, tell me about girls' education." And I said, "Bob, you have come a long way." And he said, "I had a good teacher." And it was just wonderful.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
So we never give up on them.
It's a wonderful film. Thank you very much, and thank you for doing the race. Thank you for the gumption and never giving up. But my question is, you wore 2 very difficult, performed 2 difficult positions. You were skipper and navigator. Can you talk a little bit about that? The math is overwhelming, I think.
I was never meant to be the skipper. That was a slight mistake there. So I started Maiden for a very selfish reason. I didn't start off waving the flag for women or doing anything like that. I saw the world as it was, and I wanted to change it because I didn't like it. So to do that, to be a navigator on a boat, I had to create my own project, and it had to be women because men would never allow me on the boat. And then as it went on, I thought, this is bigger than me wanting to be a navigator. This is about women proving they can do it, and then it became much more the Maiden that you kind of see. But I was going to find a skipper, so I was going to put the whole project together, find the money, do the whole thing. I'm the navigator and find a skipper. Now, Mary Claude was supposed to be that skipper, but the thing I discovered about myself as we were going through this process was that I'm a real control freak. And I didn't know that up until then. And the more she tried to do what none of this was her fault. This is all my fault. She tried to take the reins from me, and I kept going, no. And then it came to, as you saw, the full sort of blowout. And I then didn't have time to find a skipper. But what we did end up with, I think, was a much better structure, which was the sort of the perfect triangle, which was myself and my 2 extraordinary watch captains. Who were everything I wasn't. We worked so well together, and so we didn't end up with that vertical hierarchy. We ended up with a more circular one, which is much better for women anyway.
Have you been able to support yourself since this amazing journey through activities related to sailing in your book and this movie, or have you had to do other things?
Oh, well, I mean, Maiden was just one project. The next project I did was the first all-female crew to attempt the non-stop round-the-world record, something called the Jules Verne, and that was also the first British team to sail a maxi multi-hull. Some of the girls from Maiden came with me, as if they hadn't had enough. Then the next project I did was Maiden 2, which was the first ever fully mixed gender racing team. We broke more world records than any other team in the UK. That's 20 years ago, and it's never been repeated. No one has ever done a mixed gender team racing, professional racing team since then, and you just want to go. I do a lot of that. Then I did a big round-the-world race. I organised a big round-the-world race in the Middle East, which didn't go very well. I was forced into bankruptcy when I was 43 and spent the next 14 years getting back on my feet. And when I just got back on my feet, that's when Maiden came back into my life. So it's been a weird circle.
My question was, do you still sail, and when's the last time you did?
Ooh, that is a good question. I don't sail anymore because I have a back injury that prevents me from doing so, and I'm such a coward I won't go and have it operated on. But, you know, I'm watching Maiden sail around the world again, and I'm watching these younger versions of us doing each leg, and I'm thinking, I would really like to do another leg on Maiden, so I think I might go and get it sorted out so that I can go sailing again.
Excellent. Tracy, thank you again. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I love this place. Yay, Boston. Thank you so much.